a choice right now, between fear and love. It's just a rock.
Out of the dark night of ignorance and into the shining light of truth.
Expounding reality.
A population of citizens capable of critical thinking.
We don't see things as they are, we see them as we are.
There's a level of reality where everything dissolves into an ocean of energy.
We empower our experience by insisting on our authenticity.
That's very profound. Very.
Expanding reality.
Welcome to Expanding Reality. I am your host, Brandon Thomas. On this incredibly cool episode, Jeremy Ryan Slate, the creator of the podcast Create Your Own Life, as well as the author of the book From Remarkable to Extraordinary. His Command Your Brand has actually hooked us up with a very cool guest coming up very soon. You guys are going to love. So all the ways to find him located down in the show notes, all the ways to find and support us located down there as well. Stick around at the end here, guys, for some new affiliates that we have that we're very excited about. But in the meantime, and without any further ado, Jeremy Ryan Slate. Welcoming to the show, Jeremy Ryan Slate. Dude, you were awesome. Your assistant, Rebecca, reached out, and we started talking about getting another guest that we do have booked on. But then she and I started talking about you. I wanted to know more about your company, more about who is sending this incredible person my way. And here you are, my friend. So for my audience not too familiar with you, I'm going to be linking all the ways to find you in the show description down there. Guys, check those for sure. But for those not too familiar, if you don't mind, my friend, introduce yourself for those of the audience here.
Yeah, my name is Jeremy Slate. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Command Your Brand. I've also hosted a podcast since 2014 called the Create Your Own Life Show. And we get in a lot of trouble. We talk about a lot of topics you're not supposed to touch because I think those are some of the most important ones in the world, man.
Well, give me an example. What's one of the topics that we're not supposed to touch? Touch the shit out of it here, dude.
Okay, so we get into politics a lot, and it's interesting because I find myself to be more of like a moderate libertarian type. But at the same time, like, I feel like the far left and the far right drive me insane. And I want to have conversations that like matter to real people. So sometimes we're talking about like, what things should we be talking about in schools, or, what things should we be talking about in terms of the family? So it's like, I really want to dive into things that actually matter to real people. I'm just tired of all the bullshit of like, this person's calling that person a name and that person's calling that person a name. Like, it's not communication, man. And I think when you look at it, most people are somewhere in the middle and just want to get along. And, those are the conversations I'm trying to have because they're what matter to people's real lives.
Yeah, dude, we shake it up at the end of this thing. Every single episode ends with y'all just be good to one another. Like, that's what it really is at the core.
Yeah.
And I'm with you about this. And that's one of our things here as well. Like, we're not just talking about UFOs and amazing folks like yourself. We're here installing opportunities for critical thinking. And that's what really this is all about, right? Just at least acknowledging the possibilities of what you're being presented may not be 100%. And that's all you need is that one little sliver of possible alternative, and that just sets you free. And it sounds like, again, that you and I are on a very aligned mission to give people back to themselves. Now, your book, tell us about your book, man.
So I wrote a book, and it's been through a little bit of a journey itself. I wrote a book 4 years ago now at this point called Unremarkable to Extraordinary. It was supposed to come out last year. And then like, I don't know if you've seen, but like the publishing industry is kind of like a shitstorm right now.
That's why we started one. We founded our own publishing house. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like, I know even
for your next one.
Okay. Cause I know even Scribe Media like collapsed last week, which shocked the hell out of me because they're one of the bigger ones in like that kind of hybrid space. But our publisher on the day of like the book was coming out was like, so you know how people say they can't get your book this morning, even though they bought it? Yeah, we just went out of business. And I'm like, okay, that was really good to know now that I've put like $30,000 in marketing money behind this and everything else. So basically what happened is we had thousands of people buy the book, thousands of people get emails being told them, hey, like your order has been canceled. And then we had to kind of figure out like what the fuck to do with this thing. And basically we tabled it for them. We reached out to another really great, it actually ended up being a better situation for us as we ended up hooking up with Morgan James Publishing. And this year it actually came out for real this time. And it's really about the idea of like, I'm somebody that I don't know how to explain this, but like, I think most personal development is bullshit. And it's a personal development book for people that hate personal development. Like, what is real life about? Like, what are the things I learned from the former CA director? Like, what have I learned from a 4-time Indy 500 champion? Like, what have I learned from somebody that's played in the World Series and won a World Series? Like, because I think those things are real applicable in life and you can do them, right? I think most people, they're not at an awareness level yet to be able to look at things from more of a spiritual perspective. So they kind of need more of that, like, what can I do? Tell me what to do. And I think once you kind of get some success, you can get a little bit more connected. But I think for a lot of people, it's hard to do it off the bat, man. So like, I want to give people something you can do, repeat, and really take action in, man.
Yeah, actionability, man. That's exactly what we're talking about here. And to put forth, it's almost like a Napoleon Hill sort of thing that what you did here is you went and you consulted a lot of folks, that you found valuable, and then filtered it through your own interpretation and insight, and then made it your own, man. So what's one of the best things that you've learned with creating this book?
It's the best thing that I learned, frankly, because I feel like too, when you put something together like that, there's also the experience of what you get out of it creating it. And my master's degree is in early Roman Empire propaganda. So like, I wrote this whole 100-page thesis on like how Caesar Augustus convinced people he was God. So like, I use a lot of what my dad calls $100 words. So like, the thing I had to learn was how to actually take those and actually put it in a way that it's like way other people can experience, right? I had to like learn how to write differently. So in putting this book together, I had to learn a whole new way of communicating and a whole new way of writing. So actually what I ended up doing is I started the whole thing in Google Docs, and I used a lot of transcriptions from episodes, which I put together and synthesized, brought in some voice notes and stuff like that. And it was a lot of gobbledygook, to be honest. So I had to learn how to take that and then make it into a narrative that's helpful. So frankly, I learned a big skill in like how to actually take very academic writing and turn it into something that can help people. So that's one part of it. The other part of it is when you look at people that have done incredible things, there's really only like 5 or 6 things that they all do that are pretty close to the same. And I think when you look at it, they're willing to confront really, really, really fucking hard things. And I think most people will look at a situation and they'll go the opposite way, or they'll want to sit and drink a beer on their couch, whatever it may be. But I'm talking about when people look at that and they say, that is scary as hell. I'm going to sit here and think about it for a second, and I'm going to go for it because I'm going to come out the other side better. So there's so much that you can really learn from that and apply in your life. So, like I got a ton out of it as a writer, but at the same time, I think there's some incredible stuff that people can actually use in their everyday life.
Give me your number one thing. Folks are going to be listening to this going, okay, I need an actionable takeaway. Give us a number one that folks can start right now. That's really hard because there's so many. Can I give you a couple? Is that okay?
Please.
Like, don't limit yourself. I just, one is a minimum, one or better, right?
Okay. So first of all, I'm a big believer in our education system right now is one of the worst crimes on humanity ever committed. And the reason I say that is, let's look at like the most MBAs are actually employed by the US government. That should teach you something. So like, I just think a college education isn't as valuable as we want to make it, right? Like I come from 2 very blue collar parents where my dad didn't finish high school. He later went back and got his GED. So for them, like they really sold me the dream of like, you need a college degree, because they had been sold the dream of you need a college degree. And I think there's not a ton of value in that anymore, unless you're a doctor or a lawyer or something like that. So the thing I think is really valuable is finding an apprenticeship. And what I mean by that is not like an internship or something like that, an apprenticeship. If you want to go into a career, or you want to make a change, or you want to do something different, find somebody that's really, really good at that thing and work for them for a little bit, maybe for free, because you will gain so much experience, so much insight. And the other part about it is you may find just what I found when I was teaching high school, like, fuck, what am I doing here? I don't want to do this, because I think there's just so much value in that. We've lost the idea of apprenticeships and what that means. And I would love to see the school system kind of get torn up in the future, add an apprenticeship right after high school, which should only be 2 years anyway. And then people decide if they need to go to college or whatever it may be. So that's one thing, is I think finding somebody that has what you want, either working with them or for them for a period of time. I think there's so much value in that. The other thing I would say as well is just going back to the idea of adversity, is figuring out what the hard things that you could be doing in your life and confronting them. Because a lot of times when you look at it like a blacksmith's furnace, you throw metal into a blacksmith's furnace, and after some hammering and other things, it comes out very different. And I think that's how we need to approach difficult things in our life. One of the single hardest things that ever happened to me in 2012, my mom ended up having a really bad stroke. I was the person that found her, and it was just a really difficult situation. It made me look at my life. It made me look at like what I was doing as a career. And I'm like, well, fuck, man, I don't want to be here. And I ended up going from there to trying a bunch of different businesses that didn't work before I founded this agency in 2016. So like, for me, there's so much opportunity in adversity if you're willing to embrace it, figure out what you can get out of it and how you can become better. It's wild because I find out so much of what I've learned is viewpoints and how you see the world. You know what I mean? Like how 100%. You see the world, right? Like I'll give you the example of two different people that approach the same place, same city. One person approaches a city and said, fuck this place, man, these people, I don't want to be here. And da-da-da. He gets robbed. Somebody takes his car. Like, you know what I mean? Like all these terrible things happen to him. Other guy approaches the same city and he goes, man, this place is great. I love this place. Gets a free lunch, makes a couple friends. Somebody gives him money out of nowhere. Your viewpoints have so much to do with the reality you create for yourself. And you are doing yourself a disservice if you have the incorrect viewpoint. That's at least my experience.
Beautiful. 100% of what we talk about here is perception. It's all perception based.
It is.
Consensus reality ideas like that. Maybe we're not all even in the same damn place, but like you said, approaching a city, those two people created a multiverse version of that city that exists simultaneously within it, but you get to pick which one based on just your decision to choose to do so. It's a fascinating perspective, dude, and we love it here. And I love what you said also.
Well, you get what you put your attention on as well, right? Like, so if you decide something is, there's a, whether you're right or wrong, you're going to make it that way, right? So I think, anyway.
Dude, you nailed it. We have our nephew comes and stays with us. Wife and I have a 12-acre ranch out here. And so when we go out and I get the, T-post slammer, I don't know if you've ever slammed a T-post in hard Texas dirt, but you learned some new cuss words. I did, but I had my finger in it. So that was, I luckily, I don't know how I didn't get stitches. We have 6 acres here. So it's like, yeah. Okay. So, and so we have this teenager, kid that comes out here for the summers, and then I'll grab that thing or grab some stuff. I say, all right, let's go outside, put on something you don't mind throwing away or whatever. And we go out and he's on the way out there, on the way to the field. Oh, this is going to suck. This is going to suck. I'm like, well, you've already determined that, haven't you? It's like, you have no idea what we're doing, but you've already set the stage that this is going to suck. And I tell you what, it sucked for that kid. Now, he learned this throughout the summer, and then we would approach things differently, and he would then learn to greet them. And honestly, the projects were different for both of us. I had a great time either way. But he had a really great time, which made all of us have more fun because simply the lesson you just said, approaching it mentally differently at the onset. This is manifestation. There's that wonderful study that was done with the basketball players who just sat there and were told to visualize shooting. That it's 75% better than the ones that actually physically did so, that actually physically practiced. It's powerful, dude. And I love what you said also about feedback, not failure. That's absolutely right. Yeah, we resonate just crazy with that, dude. I've been I'm not anymore I turned 36 last week, so I'm closing in on Happy 40, birthday. but thank you. But in my 20s, I was a competitive powerlifter. So, I'm 5'6", I was 215 at that point. I'm 180 now, so I've lost a lot of weight. But one of the big things I did before every lift was close my eyes and visualize it. And you would be surprised how much easier that rep is when you open your eyes and do it than when you've closed your eyes and seen yourself do it. Do you know what I mean? Like, because a lot of times people are grabbing that bar and thinking, all right, can I do this one? Yep. Whereas you're like, no, I just did it. You know what I mean? So it's that viewpoint, and that looking at it as a done really does change things. So this is scalable too, because we have the same mode on here, dude. We're just going to be yes-anding each other this whole time. Yeah, that sounds good to me. This is scalable as well, because then you can apply this to anything in life. You can apply this to opportunities, seeing things all around you that are to your benefit, and then they manifest as such, dude. But like you said, the visualization part of this is crucial. It's absolutely crucial. Mm-hmm. What about, I'm very curious about channeling adversity, because this is one of the things when it pops up, we're all, we talk about the concept of alchemy here, very much so, about alchemizing the energies in front of you. And it sounds like that you're on the same channel as well. So tell us about channeling adversity from your perspective. So, and you said something too that I want to make a point on in a couple of minutes. So I don't want to, I have a bookmark on that, so remind me. Okay. But like when I look at it, here's an example. Like, I don't know if do you follow football at all or no? No. Okay. So this may be a bad example, but it may not. I'm familiar enough. Go ahead. Tom Brady just retired. And if you look at statistically, he's the greatest quarterback to ever play. Right. So his senior year of high school, he barely starts, right? He's barely a starting quarterback. He goes to college. He gets recruited to Michigan. The coach that recruits him
leaves and, never coaches him. So then for 3 years, he has to compete to play. His senior year, they're like, you're the starter, dude. You got this. You're going to be the starting quarterback. So then the coach, Lloyd Carr, brings in this other starting quarterback and he goes, you know what? You're only going to start half the games. So then he gets in the NFL. He's drafted in the 6th round, which is really late, barely gets drafted, only plays because the quarterback ahead of him literally almost dies on the field. And he then, when he gets that opportunity, becomes the greatest quarterback of all time. Now, why is that important? Because he had to watch more film. He had to think faster. He had to learn better because he's slow. He can't throw the ball very far. So he had to learn all of these soft skills that people usually don't develop, right? The worst thing that can happen to a lot of football players is being a number 1 overall pick, because everybody told you your whole life you're the best. Everybody told you how great you are. You've never really had to work that hard because you've had natural talent. And when you become a professional, everybody's good, right? Everybody was an all-star somewhere. So when you get to that level, and this is when business and life and whatever it may be, when you get to that to the top level, the things that matter most are soft skills. And adversity and getting through it actually builds those soft skills, right? Like how you treat other people, what your mindset is, how you approach things. And it's the people that pay attention to those soft skills that become the best, because everybody can be the best at the top. But if you are thinking differently, looking at things correctly, and develop those skills, you're really going to stand out. That's at least my viewpoint on it, it's that 0.5% better that you have to be in anything that most people are never really going to develop unless they're forced through something difficult to build those soft skills.
Dude, you nailed it with this. I'm going to ask you to pull that bookmark back up, but I want to comment on this before I do. So you've absolutely nailed it with this. And the same thing with trees. We've talked about this on the show quite a bit, or any plants. Like if you grow them in a greenhouse environment where it's perfect, they're pampered, they've got like perhaps, I don't know, classical music playing or something like that, then it's different. They'll live, but they won't thrive. You know what I mean? Yeah. You won't see their full potential. You'll see just a shitty copy of it. And but wind and adversity and putting fans in that same greenhouse or exposing them to the elements and letting them get a good storm, or animals pooping on them and rubbing on them and breaking branches and shit off. This is how you strengthen that, by really digging those roots down. And it's the same mentality with what you're talking about here, dude. So,
because I was just talking to a guy. I have a good friend that he's a 3-tour Army vet. And we were talking about like some of the really difficult, he was in Iraq was where he spent a lot of time. And he was talking about some of the most difficult firefight situations they were in. And he's like, the thing that's interesting is you get in a situation like that, the skill you actually build is being able to assume the viewpoint of others, right? Like, how is this other guy in my group doing? Or how's that civilian I have to worry about doing? Or how is this other thing doing? But you're not forced to develop that unless you're in a situation where everybody's going to die if you don't make the right decision. Right. And I think that is the true value in adversity.
Damn. I mean, and it is because the cost is greater at that point. You know, it's more than just your ego or anything else. You know, you take it much more seriously. All right, I'm tapping into your bookmark here. Go ahead and pull it. Let's hear it.
So you were talking about your nephew and working on the farm. I did a podcast episode about this last week. I'm a big believer in the value of physical work. Yeah. And the value in what it can teach you and what it can learn from you. We moved to this house about 2 years ago after being like, I'm not going to say we're in the city, but we're a little bit closer to the city. Now we're like totally out in the boondocks where it's pretty much, Pennsylvania here. And my daughters have to feed the chickens every morning, and we handle the pig, and we do there's all fixed fences. There's a lot of work that gets done around here. And I think there's a couple different things about it. I think the best thing you can do for your mental health is physical work. Because the more physical work you're going to do, you're going to feel better about yourself, because you're going to feel more confident. You're going to feel more able. And at the same time, there's the other part of it. If the world ever does go to shit, like, you're at least going to be more capable than the guy next door to you, so you could survive. Yeah. But I think physical work has so much value, and we've lost so much of that, right? Like, we've lost so much of that because you look at people and they talk about, well, I have, this many followers and, this many, whatever it may be. But in actuality, real confidence comes from competence, right? Your ability to do something and do it well and achieve it, right? I can build anything my wife asks me to. I can fix just about anything on my property. And I think that, to me, it doesn't come from ego. That comes from competence, and that's where the confidence comes from. So I'm just a big believer in physical work. I just wanted to add to what you were saying earlier.
You've absolutely nailed this, man. It's the most grounding thing living out here, because we walk out. I've got, tree limbs that fall during storms. Great. I got things to do now. I'll haul them down to the pile. There's so many things to do around here that I absolutely love it. So it's a trade-off, but I absolutely empathize with what you said. And that's why this kid, when he comes here, he knows in the 100 and whatever degree Texas sun out here, it's not sit inside and watch movies the whole time. You're on a ranch, man. We got things to do. There's animals, there's all of that. And it builds so much strength and character, and you do become so confident. There have been silly things. I'm sure you living on property, away from
I don't
town.
have as much property as you though. So I don't want to sound like I'm you're swinging a little bit of a bigger dick than me. It sounds like here. So
no worries. What I mean to say is, you live far. If you have that sort of land, then you live probably a little further than you'd want to run real quick to the store. So you kind of look around the ranch.
That's not possible.
Exactly. So you look around the ranch. We don't get delivery food out here, do y'all?
Amazon comes out here.
Amazon
but
does.
It's usually a little bit more than 2 days. So
got you. I meant like a pizza delivery or anything like that. Like Chinese food, we kissed bye-bye delivery Chinese like 8 years ago when we moved out.
We've never had Chinese delivery out here. Pizza, yes, because pizza just kind of is. But like, I don't know, like there's not a Costco or anything like that here. So it's like if you want to do that, you got to spend a couple hours.
Yeah, exactly. And so to your point, whenever I moved out here the first year, we had this old mower that they left us, my first riding lawnmower ever. And something happened to one of the battery terminal cables where the bolt broke and it couldn't connect anymore. So I was like, okay, I'm looking around this place and I found a U-bolt that had 2 threaded ends on it, but it was connected. So I grabbed my Dremel tool, cut that off real quick, found 2 bolts, connected it, dude. I'm throwing my hands up in an empty driveway, just yelling, I am all that is man, because you figure out a way to do something and you're just like, yes, I can do anything. You feel so powerful. And it is this physical labor, but also these mental challenges associated with it as well. It's awesome.
Yeah. And also like, to me, that's something to be really proud of. Like, so the way you know what Bilco doors are like in a basement?
One more time on the word.
Bilco doors. When you go into a basement, they're usually these metal doors that you open them up and you go into your basement because it's underground from the outside.
Oh, like Wizard of Oz, like
exactly.
Oh, okay.
Exactly.
I didn't know they were called that. Thank you.
Okay, so the ones that are basement are a really weird size. So they're made of wood. And when we bought the house, they were kind of like slowly rotting and they caved in on themselves. So I went out and I bought the thickest plywood you can get, and I made these really cool doors, and I built them and put them in and painted them up and everything. And I bring my wife out here and take a look, and I'm like, look how fucking cool that is. But to me, that's real. Do you know what I mean? That's real achievement. It's something you made, something you created. You feel like you did it well enough that it's going to have some staying power. And I don't think you get that from other things. Like, cool, you built a landing page or you did something online. Like, those things are important. But at the same time, like building something real and physical in the physical universe, that's pretty cool, man.
That's super cool. Same thing. I mean, just watched YouTube videos, figured out how to frame just based on YouTube videos, and framed up and built a huge barn. The barn's like 3 times the size of our house.
Cool.
I just threw it together out there. Yeah. So it's shit like that, but it's that confidence. Like that's what, confidence is just series of successes, right? And so getting people to take these small steps, like what you're offering here, and challenging folks to challenge themselves and to step out of this boring normal, get into your discomfort zone a little bit. But really, you'll find that it is so addicting that direction. It is so damn addicting that you're just kind of hanging out in a whirlpool before. It's just so different, the mentality, right?
Well, I think just like as a society, though, like we've been told to like not do things that like you don't want to fail, or, you don't want to have things happen. Dude, like, have you ever built anything without directions? Like, come on. Like, I've cut the wrong hole like 4 times and eventually you line it up and you put some wood filler in there and you handle the thing and it looks fine. But like, we've been told by society that like, you don't want to fail. So you know what happens? You don't want to fail. You don't try. And when you don't try, you don't improve. Like, I think when you lose, there's so much value in that because you learn how to not lose in that same way again. Or you learn how to get better next time. But we've been told like, it's okay. You just participated. You just showed up, whatever it may be. And it's like, nobody gets better that way. Nobody becomes the best that way. Nobody like, I don't know, man. We just become a bunch of losers that way.
It is. It's success. It's not sustainable and it's not realistic because that means a couple of things. You're not trying or you're not challenging yourself. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's like, playing a video game on easy. It's like, you're never like, sure, you can score a bunch of points, but like, what is that? There's no value to you in that.
Yeah. There's substance in the challenge. What is it? The universe rewards the risk takers. So absolutely. So I want to talk to you about passion. What's your theory on passion?
I don't know if you're going to like this one or not, but I think following your passion is one of the single dumbest things you can do. And this is why I say that, because passion, when you look at it, like passion has to unite with the ability to make money, right? Like if you can't make money from it or can't find something exchangeable from it, you're not going to be able to do it very long. So I'm a big believer in finding something you're good at and continue to work at it and work at it and work at it until you get really good at it and find a way to make it profitable. If you don't make it profitable, if you don't find a way to do something with it, then there really isn't a reason to have that thing. Do you get what I'm saying? Like it's when you look at it, I say that following your passion is a passive process, right? Because you're following this thing. It is what it is. Finding your passion is an active process. You know, you do a lot of things. You fail at a lot of things. You find something you're good at. You built a skill set and you can do that thing. But I think this whole idea of, because people have been sold a dream by the internet, like, you know, find your passion or follow your passion. You're never going to work a day in your life. Well, that's just not true. It's horseshit. And I think what it comes down to is finding something you're good at, getting so good at that thing that you can do something about that. It comes from, I got that idea a number of years ago from a book by Cal Newport called So Good They Can't Ignore You. He had actually, I feel like this is like Inception, because his book comes from a book he read. He read a book called by Steve Martin, about Steve Martin's life, the actor Steve Martin. They said, you know, Steve, how did you get to be so good? He goes, well, I just kept working at it. And one day I was so good they couldn't ignore me. And I think that's how you have to look at it. But we've looked at it as like, oh, I'm passionate about this thing. I'm just going to keep doing this thing. And like, that may be great. And if you want to do it as a hobby, that's awesome. But if you really want to take something and make it your career, or make it whatever it is that you're going to do with your life, it has to be something that aligns with profit, right? Purpose has to align with profit, or you just can't do it. I don't know. I don't know how you feel about that one, but that's at least my viewpoint on it.
I'm curious. I don't believe in money being the motivation to do anything, like ever. And so it's an interesting perspective that you bring up.
Well, it's something exchangeable as well, right? Like, cause like, you know what I mean? We exchange eggs with our neighbors for vegetables, right? Like, so like, you know, it works out for me. I get vegetables, I created eggs. It doesn't necessarily have to be money, but I think money is the kind of the unit of exchange that we've all agreed upon at this point in time.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I would say then to that is another thing that my neighbor and I do. We have extra eggs. He brings me cartons. We fill them up. And then now he has chickens, right? He grows things in his garden that we don't. We swap it out. I am more of a fan of that. But as far as like taking it as a motivator, I don't think people's numbers or anything, like basically the way that and the way that I talk about this is with, let's say, the show, for example. Like if no one listened to the show, I would absolutely still do it. And if I was not getting paid and I needed to go do something else, I would absolutely still do it. And in my mind, that's passion. Now, as a result, it's been an expanded, huge thing that's resulted in so many more things than money. Yes, the money, but so many more things. And so by not limiting myself to only doing it for cash or for exchangeable goods in a quid pro quo way, that we have a different viewpoint on, but I respect yours. Absolutely. I
appreciate that. I just want to add a little bit to that, because I don't want to make it seem like it's just for the money. Like, because I think that's important and you need it to be able to survive, or you need exchange to be able to survive. But I think too often people think, I'm just going to do this thing and I'm going to get paid for existing in this thing. Do you get what I'm saying? Like they want someone, the idea I'm trying to put across here is, and maybe I've done a bad job in explaining it, they want someone else to give them a license to survive or do that thing they want to do. Do you get what I'm saying?
I get this. And what I took from it is that it really is about finding your balance to where the things in life that you need are provided for in a way that's in harmony. Now, whenever I was doing the first
That's
show,
it right there.
Yeah. When I was doing the first year of the show, dude, I was exhausted, man. It was a year and a half of sleeping 2 and 4 hours a night if I was lucky. And I was exhausted, but I was chasing that paycheck. I was looking to replace my job with this. And it's whenever I abandoned that idea and really just went in flow with it, that's when it, and to this point, it's really more of a law of attraction thing with me. It's more of a, what you focus on disappears. That's even a Zen thing, you know? And so doing it for that reason guarantees in my mind that you're not going to get it. But what it does do is it gets you to the right place mentally to where you find balance and freedom is what you were after all along. And that, in my mind, is where we've led with that.
Yeah, and it has to align with opportunity in some way. Do you know what I mean? Like if it's not going towards some sort of opportunity, like you do need some things to kind of sustain in this universe and live. And if you can't get them, it's going to be really hard, man.
Yeah, and that's it. And then at that point, then it's aligning to the opportunity, and that's exactly Well, I'm also curious about your role of the ego in all of this. You know, a lot of folks are sitting here saying, kill your ego, slam its head in a door or something like that. What are your thoughts?
You know, I think the tough thing about this is, so I was raised like very, very Christian. And like, I also I went to school for theology and everything else. And I think it's important to be a spiritual person. I think it's important to acknowledge that side of yourself. But I think at the same time, saying you have to humble yourself for everything and saying like, you know, the ego shouldn't exist and things like that. Like it's trying to not be, do you get what I'm saying? Like it's trying to not be as a person and it's making someone else or some other thing responsible for you and who you are. So I think at the same time, like ego is important because ego makes you who you are. But at the same time, you have to check it a certain extent because you shouldn't be a dick to everybody. Do you get what I'm saying? Like,
I guess,
so it's like if you don't have an ego, you know, like, you know, it's ego as I am. And if you don't have it, you aren't really being in some ways. So I think it's important to kind of look at that, but also realize like, how am I treating others? How am I getting along? And am I granting the right to others to be, right? Because you can have an ego and you can be who you are if you're granting others the right to be and exist. And I think far too often we see this, I think, especially in politics, right? Like you don't get to be president or senator or whatever it may be by not being so full of yourself. It's incredible. And I think when you get to that level, you start squashing others' ability to be. So you have to kind of look at like, ego is who I am, right? But when I'm taking that, am I becoming a jerk because of that? And am I not granting others the ability to be and be who they are? I hope that doesn't sound way too esoteric, but like that's kind of my viewpoint on how I look at that.
Brother, I'm not sure we're all living in the same reality, and we talk about it all the time. You go as esoteric as you'd like, man. And now I'm just curious, how did Caesar convince people that he was a god? Your thesis. And okay, this is pretty written. I had this written down to ask you about, by the way, because I've never heard of a master's in early Roman Empire propaganda. Because again, the fact that you're so aware that they were bullshitting everyone is something that you majored in. I think that that's amazing. Please continue. So
I've read this this like really obscure article. It was by this priest named Father Cuthbert Leyte. It was written like 1902 or something like that. And this article is like, so after the Battle of Actium is where Augustus and Mark Antony face off, and Augustus beats him. And he's like, yeah, I'm the man now. I'm going to go be an emperor. So like after winning that, he goes to Alexandria, which is where the mummified body of Alexander the Great was as a sarcophagus there for people to kind of like worship. So he goes to Alexandria. He bows down before the sarcophagus of Alexander and prays. I was like, well, that's weird because Romans have their own gods. I'm like, and it doesn't have anything to do with Alexander the Great. I'm like, that's really strange. So I did a lot of research on that. And what I noticed is there was a lot of Augustus after that point in his life. Augustus up to that point was Gaius Octavius. There was a lot of up to that point. And after that point, he starts positioning himself as the new Alexander. I was like, wow, that's really interesting. So he's like, if these people are praying to this guy, then I can figure out how to get them to pray to me. Then I've transcended to become God. Because you have to understand about Alexander the Great in history. He's a very, very interesting character from the perspective of he's this Macedonian Greek that goes and conquers Babylon. And he observed a lot why he did this. The Babylonian emperor, there was I hope this isn't too much for you because this is some deep stuff. But to like understand it, you need the full concept. So when you worship the Babylonian emperor who was seen as a god, you did something called proskynesis. And that's not the idea of just kneeling in front of somebody. That's you lay your entire body on the floor in front of them because they are so holy you can't even stand up to them. So Alexander's like, I'm going to make everybody do that in front of me. So he adopted this from Babylon where he had all these people do proskynesis in front of him, bow on the ground in front of him. And then a couple years down the road, they conquer Egypt, and the Egyptian ruler, the pharaoh, is seen as a god. So he goes to the oracle at Zeus-Ammon, which is in a part of Egypt. And because the pharaoh is seen as the son of God, he walks in and the oracle greets him as greetings, son of God. And he's like, oh, son of God, I like that. So he lives his whole life then from that point, like, you know, I'm having people bow in front of me. I'm God. And he looks for a lot of these different like different imagery, right? Because imagery has so much power. So he uses this imagery. So Caesar Augustus is very aware of this because he had watched this competition in his life between his adopted father, Julius Caesar, and Pompey the Great. And because what's really important to worship is people can't just worship you because they fear you. They have to love you. And that's what Pompey did differently than Caesar. Caesar, like Romans had always found a way to connect themselves to like their gods as like, you know, like, hey, I'm descendant from the goddess Venus, right? Like, no, you're not, but they think you are. So Caesar had connected himself to the goddess Venus through Venus Ventrix or Venus of Victory. And people are like, he was trying to use this to show people that he was feared. He was like this godly figure. And they're kind of like, I don't believe that. That seems pretty obscure. And then you have Pompey on the other side of it because these two guys were competing for who's more popular, who's like, I'm the new Alexander. I conquered Europe. I conquered Africa. I conquered this. I conquered that. So people were having parades for Pompey. They were bowing down in front of Pompey because they loved him and he positioned himself as Alexander. So then when Caesar kills Pompey, Caesar eventually gets killed by the Roman people. And then when Augustus becomes a ruler, he goes, okay, I've observed this. I need to be Alexander. So he spends the next 80 years of his life creating imagery around worshiping Alexander and how it connects to him. And then every Roman emperor for the next 400 years after them does the same thing. So that's where it comes from.
Damn. Well, I mean, it's so interesting because I guess the horseshit just continues. And especially with the Caesars. Have you heard of Caesar Borgia?
Cesare Borgia.
Yeah, there you go.
He was the first. I'm glad you mentioned that. He's one of my favorite historical characters because he was a maniac, but like he is the son of Pope Alexander VI, and the illegitimate son of Pope Alexander VI. So Alexander VI makes him a cardinal, and he was actually the first person to ever give up his cardinal's robe and then become this like crazy condottiere, which is like a Italian cowboy, basically, where he's like conquering shit. Awesome. Yeah, so I'm very aware of Cesare Borgia.
But wasn't he the guy that had his son painted to look like Jesus? And this is where we get the image of Jesus, but it was to deify himself. Because by proxy, if my son's Jesus and this is the image, you know, that everybody's given, then I'm God.
Yes. So Alexander VI, Rodrigo Borgia, then at that time, he has all the painters painting his son Cesare in the imagery of Christ. So the blonde hair, blue-eyed Christ that, you know, has the hair and everything like you've seen, like up until that point, that wasn't the imagery. But you're the Pope and you could put that out there and you can change a lot of things. That is where all the images of Christ that we're familiar with come from. And this is from Cesare Borgia.
So fascinating is this early Roman Empire propaganda. It's all bullshit. And
it's always the Romans, man.
God. But it's done so much. Now, damage or help or whatever is subjective, right? But it's just done so much that it's just fascinating to me, dude. So thank you for walking us through that. Honestly, that was fascinating. I'm grateful.
Yeah, I appreciate you letting me get a little on the weeds in that one because I don't usually. So,
well, let's get a little on the weeds with the rest of the time we have here. Anyhow, I want to know what your thoughts are on aliens and stuff. I mean, we're seeing them rolled out in the news right now. There's all these things coming out, and a lot of military officers being paraded around on camera telling you that they're here and that they're a threat. I'm just curious what your thoughts are.
I'm a big Eric von Däniken fan, so I've read a lot of his stuff, The Chariots of the Gods and stuff like that, and I don't know, man. Like, I think really they've been around for a really long time, and because we had to come from somewhere, right? Like, so I think I'm trying to remember what there was the book that didn't make it in the Bible. Which one was that?
Or a couple Gnostic Gospels,
Enoch.
like the Book of Thomas, Enoch,
the book of Enoch,
and Enoch's referenced in the Bible, which is crazy.
Yes, yeah. So like, if you've read stuff about Enoch and you've read kind of like, you know, the seed of man coming from, you know, aliens basically growing us and stuff like that. I'm a big believer, and there's got to be some truth to that, because if you look in different cultures, they have some form of that, right? It's even if you look at what is that story? The story that's the same as Noah's Ark, but it's Babylonian. Gilgamesh, the Epic of Gilgamesh. Like, there's these stories, just like the zeitgeist, that go through every single culture. And if you look at a lot of these ancient aliens stories, they're in every single culture. And to me, that says something, right? We have some sort of memory of this. We have some sort of experience of this. So I'm a big believer of, it has something to do with nuclear power that might sound kind of crazy, but I think kind of like we've destroyed this civilizations before, and they're kind of watching what we're doing related to nuclear power, and they're like, oh, we should probably step in. These guys are going to kill themselves again. You know what I mean? That might sound crazy.
Each other. No, it's
yeah,
not
like
crazy.
that might sound crazy, but to me, I think it has something to do with, they set this whole place up, and maybe or maybe not they were getting resources from it or whatever, but like I think we're starting to see some stuff because they're a little afraid we're going to blow stuff up. And that's at least my opinion.
Yeah, Solace, the dude that was on base whenever all the nukes were being turned off, he says that the aliens or whatever they are kind of look at us like we've with nukes, like they've given matches to children, like we should not have them. And so a lot of contactees say this as well, that they come back with these reports, exactly what you've intuited here, that we shouldn't be dicking with that kind of stuff because we can't look at what we do to ourselves, but also maybe that has a power that reaches into their dimension. We've heard about this as well.
Well, if you look at too, like civilizations that have risen and fallen, there's Plato's Republic, and Plato's Republic, he talks a lot about the civilization of what we've learned, what we've come to call Atlantis. And, there's this massive destruction that happens and everything else. But there's this other work about the Mycenaeans, which relates actually more closely to this. And they talk about these sea peoples coming in and conquering the Mycenaeans. And they just, Mycenae is an island off of Greece. And it was one of the earliest, they had some of the earliest language. It was called Linear A and Linear B. There's this strange story about these people that just came out of the sea and conquered the Mycenaeans, and they all disappeared. Nobody's seen them ever since. So like, to me, there's a lot of civilizations that just disappear. The Aztecs, was their illness and things like that? There might have been, but it's strange that a whole civilization has wiped off the face of the earth. So you look at these different civilizations that disappeared, something had to happen, man. And I think what happened, it may not exactly be nuclear power, but we get to the point where some really extreme power suppression or something like that comes up. And I think they're kind of like, all right, we got to stop these guys again. They're going way too far. At least that's my opinion. I don't think aliens are bad. I think they kind of set this thing up and they're kind of jumping in whenever the shit starts to hit the fan.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm wondering what their level of step in means, like where our shit hits the fan, because we rolled through a couple of things. I mean, the Holocaust comes to mind, a couple of those things where it's like, when are they going to step in? It's an interesting paradigm when we talk about this like savior thing, with if they're going to really, if anyone's going to come save you or not. But like you, I don't think so. And so I feel that you are the commander of this reality and of your ship. And that if some aliens come down, then they'll at least know that we have our shit together and that we won't need to be protected,
Yeah. And it's like, I don't know, man. I think they'd look at us and be like, really? You guys are that obsessed with your phone? Do you know what I mean? Like we've become I feel like we're a bad experiment at this point.
It's an interesting point you put. What are your thoughts on simulation? Like that we're maybe just like a 3-year-old dimensions version of like a science experiment sitting on their closet or pinned to a refrigerator somewhere because their mom just can't throw their C+ work away,
I heard a conversation about this recently. I'm like, oh my God, that sounds so plausible, because everybody's talking about like Elon Musk wanting to go to Mars. And like imagine I was actually on an episode. I don't know if you've ever heard of Timcast, but it's an episode of Timcast. They're talking about imagine that like we've actually been in the metaverse forever. Right. And we're like traveling in the metaverse and going to this other planet, and we have to populate it. And when you think when we get there, right, you have to have people that have had life experience. They know how civilization worked, and you're actually just a baby in a spaceship. Like that would be some wild shit, man. Yeah. But like at the same time, like even like I think of the whole thing with the internet with simulation theory. Like when you look at the internet, I think, or dead internet theory, sorry, because if you look at it, there's so much AI and bots and things like that on the internet. They're saying like it's actually a small percentage of the action you see is real. So like, I'm just not really sure, man. I think reality is a kaleidoscope of a bunch of different things,
Yeah. To that point then, with what you said about the dead internet thing, what do you think about that being possible for this reality? If it is a simulation, do you think that everyone here is real people? Inhabitable characters, let's say.
I think there's some. I think that, and I'm just gonna say this from my experience. Have you met people that you're like, bro, there's like nobody home. Like, what is going on here? Those are NPCs. I think there are some non-player characters in this universe. You know what I mean? And I think it's very plausible that we are in some sort of a alternate reality or some sort of a simulation, because I've met so many people that like, I'm like, how do you remember to breathe? You know what I mean? Like I've met some people like that. So like I think it is very plausible there's some non-player characters out there.
I love that. I had a friend actually who got too high once. She just reminded me of this. He got too high once and we're sitting there dead silent. And all of a sudden I hear him go, and I was like, what happened? He goes, I forgot to breathe. I don't know. I was like, oh my God. And that's what I picture. It's like you're standing in line at the DMV.
My automatic nervous system does that for me. I don't have to think about it, man.
I know. It's like you were actively thinking of not breathing, to do that, right? That's what you picture is like you're in the DMV or something like that. And you just hear this, this mouth breather behind you. You're just like, come on, man. But we're sweet to everybody because everybody's sweet.
The only time I'm ever cognizant of that was like when I have a cold or something and you have to like keep yourself breathing through your mouth so like you don't like suffocate, but that's about it.
That's where you wear the shirt. I'm not an NPC. I just have a cold. I'm purging.
Yeah.
Yep.
I think that's very believable because I've met some people that I'm like, there is no way this person's not an NPC.
Yeah, and it's interesting. It's not like a shot either. It's not like we're talking shit about people. There's
no.
Yeah. There's a recognition, just sort of like in an animal where you can see like an animal, a domesticated one has a glint. There's a connection there that can be made, and maybe in the wild in some instances, but really there's something there. You can see it, and it's all in the eyes, which is wild, man.
Yeah, like do you think it's possible? Because like I've thought about this, like. Not like that. Not every person has a soul in that way. Do you get what I'm saying? Like, because you meet somebody and like, you're like, okay, they're definitely alive. There's definitely some intelligence there, but they don't seem like vibrant and real. And you know what I'm saying? Like I'm just really curious if like not, simulation or not, like if every being here actually has a soul of some sort.
It's interesting. We'll bring aliens back into this. Reports from contactees say that the Greys actually view us as vessels. So this body may just be a vessel. And then you think about the walk-in phenomena where you have other people, they'll get in like a horrible car wreck and lose a limb or something. And they're just like, dude, I'm tapped out. Some other entity, maybe some other version of them or something will say, you know what, I'll step in and finish your life for you. So you have all these cases of this kind of thing to where it really boils down to, so what the fuck is going on here? And I'm with you with this, dude.
And it's funny though. Where I struggle in these conversations, I've read way too much shit that I have to remember which line of thinking this comes from. So anyway,
well, connect it all, and that's a fun one that we talk about too. It's that, do you think that everybody here, if these are just vessels, then you would say that maybe they're just some autopilot NPC type people running around, and maybe like this thing that's being observed now, this wake up, if you want, this age of Aquarius is basically those bodies that have just been kind of on autopilot here being inhabited by souls. Because I've heard people talk about their spiritual awakening in a sense to where they're like, oh my God, I don't remember my life past my spiritual awakening like before, almost like they were a walk-in experience. So then you could say, well, perhaps this has all been on autopilot versions of things, and that this population of like yous and me's here who are figuring this out, and we spread this awareness, it entices inhabitation into that avatar, if you will, of more folks here, more like people, more characters that are animated, but also have the life, like you said.
But I think also like trauma can make people not experience that either. You know what I mean? Like, cause like you imagine like having some terrible trauma, you just may not want to go back on the time track with something like that and never experience it again. So I think there's kind of two different ways to look at that. Like, like
that's
maybe
an interesting concept,
right? Because like
maybe you zip out, maybe you yeet out and just have the body go autonomous.
Yeah, because like you're like, I don't want to play this game anymore. Like I don't know. I think that's possible.
Yeah, think about it, to what you said too. The traumatic events. People say they left their body. Maybe some people just don't come back. I'm trying to think how many years ago this was, like 2006. I had was supposed to be super minor knee surgery, and they killed me. And well, sort of killed me. I spent 3 days on like all these machines and stuff like this, and like I had this experience of like leaving my body, and it's the weirdest thing because what happens, like at least for me, I don't know if it's different for everybody, but like what happens for me is like you're not confined to a space anymore, if that makes sense. Like I'll put it this way, like right now you're in a room, right? Allegedly.
Yeah, allegedly. Like for me, like I was the room. I could feel everything. I could experience everything. I could feel everyone's emotions. It was the strangest thing, but the weirdest thing is having total recall on it.
Yeah.
So like I had this really interesting like out of body experience. It was like, gosh, like 20 years ago now, but like it was wild because it's like you're not in the room, you are the room, as weird as that sounds. Like you experience and feel everything, and you're not confined to anything because you're kind of like infinite, not finite.
Yeah. What's interesting was, so did you go beyond the room or just the room?
I just was that space. I didn't really leave that space. For some reason, I want to I don't know if I felt like I was protecting my body there or something like that, but I was like, I can't leave this guy.
Yeah, what's interesting, it's sort of a stair step. And I have heard this, and recently actually, that some folks don't go all the way to the meeting of the ancestor and your grandma in the tunnel of light.
No, I didn't leave that and go someplace, but I got last rites and all this kind of stuff. And they're we'll see how it goes. No brain activity, all that fun stuff.
Wow. But the fact that you inhabited that entire space is something that you hear. It's a localized sort of detachment, but you kind of hang around. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I have recall on it, which is weird. Yeah, I have recall on it, which is weird because it's I'm not ready to go anywhere yet. So I'll just kind of hang out here or whoa, what's that happening? You know what I mean? It's you can you can feel everything, not just your emotions, but also other people's, which is really interesting.
How did that change your perspective?
As weird as it sounds, it did not. It didn't change my perspective at all in the slightest. And it wasn't until that experience of almost losing my mom in 2012 that actually made me look at it, because holy fuck, man. I don't know, because in that moment, I'm not going to die, whatever. But when somebody else literally almost dies in front of you, that to me, that shocked me. That shocked the hell out of me, because it was I think it's much harder when it's something outside of yourself than when it's yourself. Right? Because I think it's in a lot of ways you feel infinite and you feel invincible and whatever it may be. And it didn't do anything for me. And I've heard other people say the opposite, where it was I woke up and I knew I was going to go change the world, whatever it may be. I'm I just woke up and I want a bagel. That's how bad it was. But it wasn't until almost losing my mom that that actually changed me. That was pretty crazy.
Are you a psychonaut at all? Do you do psychedelics, or have you ever?
I've never known.
Okay. I was just curious, because that kind of perspective can be offered with several psychedelic experiences. You're just yeah, everything's fucking weird and whatever, and I'm cool with it.
Yeah, no, I've never done that.
Interesting. It's a fascinating perspective, man. Well, we're glad you're here. We're glad you shook it off and came back. Well, I tell you what,
I don't know if you expected that one.
No, I honestly, it's part of the Four Agreements, that great book by Don Miguel Ruiz. I have no expectations, and it's a beautiful way to roll with it, because I don't limit myself to the possibility. So actually, this is a beautiful surprise, which I'm always here for. So thank you. So I do want to close out. All the ways, again, to find you, brother, are going to be located down in the show notes. Your book, of course, From Unremarkable to Extraordinary, 2022 book, located down there, as well as Create Your Own Life podcast. Dude, you're fascinating. You're invited back any damn time.
Thank you.
But before we leave, and I'll give you the last word on this, what gets you out of bed every morning? What gives you hope and keeps those breaths coming and going for you?
It's changed for me a lot in the last 4 years, because now I've got kids. So I have these two amazing daughters that my 4-year-old's an 11-year-old. I don't know how to describe it. So I'm really just excited to hang out with them and do things with them and provide for them. And it's changed a lot. I would say before, my fitness goals and everything else and all these things I'm doing, whatever. But it really is about my kids now.
Beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. Jeremy Slate, thank you so much, my friend. We'll do it again.
Hey, absolutely, man.
Just want to take a moment and thank that awesome dude, Jeremy Ryan Slate, for coming by and hanging out. Of course, all the ways to find his book, his podcast, all that type stuff are located down in the show description down there. So you guys take a gander there to connect with him further. Now, also wanted to mention our affiliate links. Now, guys, we have some aligned partnerships that we are incredibly proud of. And so we just want to take a moment here to talk about those. Of course, we have Food Forest Abundance. Get your freedom from fear on. That is the oldest affiliate that we have, or the longest running, I would say, the one that we've been a part of the most. Absolutely grateful to Jim Gale and his project for what they do over there, as well as Opus, the organization for paranormal understanding and support. Lester Velez and his team can help you out like crazy, guys. I love them. Also, Dewey Taylor and the Manifestor's Guide. This absolutely changed my life. Y'all know I've talked about this. Check it out for 10% off at Expanding Reality, all caps, no spaces at checkout. Also wanted to talk about, of course, the Wish unit that Dr. Doug Matsky and his team at Coherent Spaces have set up for us. The link is down there if you guys are interested in learning more or getting one of your own. It has changed the vibe of this place, and we are so grateful for it. Definitely check it out if you're interested. Also wanted to mention a couple of new things here, along with, of course, Phi Tribe's new website, Phi Tribe 369. Guys, go check that thing out. A lot of new cool stuff going on over there. If you haven't signed up yet, make sure that you do so. Along with that, we have the Luminous Education Project. Now, definitely check that link out down there below. This is with a Dr. Edith Mbutu Chan, and it is a wonderful, wonderful opportunity. This is part of the Conscious Parenting Network that we have been talking about, and this is something you guys should really check out, located down in the show notes, as well as just detoxing yourself is incredibly important. Christian Yordanov has a 30% off detox workshop with the link that is provided in the show description. We've also got Christian coming up on an episode coming up soon. You guys are going to love this dude. Make sure that you also check out my episode on his show, Changing Minds. It's unbelievable. One more thing to mention here. We have been offered an incredible opportunity at the Conscious Awakening Network to host a 2-hour live spot on their platform every Friday night. Now, this is from 8 to 10 Central on Friday nights, and it's for all of them. So they've already begun. Make sure that you check the link down there to check that out, and it's very exciting. We're incredibly grateful. Amy Belair and surprise guest was our first round up there, and it was fun. We've got them booked out quite a ways, so make sure that you guys check that out. Link down there in the show description, and it's just an awesome network. We're super grateful to be a part of it. So yeah, I think that actually wraps it up for this time, guys, and thank you so much for being here and supporting. And if you've made it this far, I'm incredibly grateful for you for being so aligned and just hearing what we have to say over here. Now, to that point, let's cap it off here by, of course, just reminding you all that go out into this incredible, beautiful place, whatever the fuck this thing is, and pick up a piece of litter. Maybe, be nice to everybody that you come across. Go ahead and buy somebody in line around you a coffee or a meal, something like that. It goes a small way out of your pocket, but a massive way into the ripple effect there. And then above all and anything else, get out of the left-hand lane if you've got somebody behind you wanting to pass. And of course, y'all, go out into this incredibly amazing place, above all and anything else, for real. And y'all just be good to one another. Thank you so much for watching, listening, engaging, participating, and just being the coolest deliberate creators out there. We love y'all. We'll see you next time.